For the longest time, Star Citizen has had ships that were supposedly stealthy in nature, along with Spaceborne Early Warning and Control or SEW&C ships that have had no real mechanics implemented with them. What the benefit of stealth ships actually is, and how the stealth mechanics actually work, has never been made clear. To make stealth mechanics feel believable, they should be based on real-life stealth, with some sci-fi sprinkled in. SEW&C ships with advanced sensors would be used to counter the stealth ships, as well as their usual duties of detecting non-stealth threats and controlling friendly fighters. Stealth mechanics tie directly into the game's signature mechanics that are currently under review. All signature values should dictate the maximum range that any ship or object can be detected by sensors like radar, and would also affect missile lock-on and automatic point defense turrets. The newly announced auto-converging gimbals could also be affected by the target signature level. Maintaining lower signature values will allow ships to get closer to the searching sensors before detection when compared to non-stealth ships. Stealth ships with their lower CS, EM and IR values would be far more difficult to detect by radars fitted to fighters. SEW&C ships should be outfitted to counter stealth ships. They could track and detect stealth and other ships via their powerful sensors at a much higher range than regular sensors could. The gameplay associated with this would require at least one other seat for another person to operate the systems while the pilot flies the ship, keeping them safe and in an optimal position. This would require all SEW&C ships to be two-seaters at a minimum, meaning that the current Hornet tracker, which is based upon the base Hornet, should actually use the Super Hornet frame instead, allowing the rear seat to be used for the Sensor Systems Officer or SSO, who could be another player or an NPC. To avoid preempting CIG here, it is possible but unlikely that the current intent is for the Hornet tracker model to forward all its data in real time to another ship to do the real work, and/or for the SEW&C to be completely immobile while scanning. SEW&C ships should be able to share information with other ships on a friendly network based on the Identification Friend or Foe system, or IFF. IFF could be set up in the communications page via the group system to allow small groups within the fleet to be split up into teams. A SEW&C could be used to control each group, providing early warning and direction. Ensuring that SEW&C ships have these unique abilities would cement them as an essential part of any fleet wanting to ensure that they have the best chance of early detection of incoming or hidden threats. Cross-section. Shape. Default cross-section values are based upon the ship's design shape and coatings. Shape is integral to the ship's design and cannot be altered. This is where stealth ships come to the fore with the design for stealth shapes. This should give them reduced cross-section values out of the box. Cross-section is based upon not only the size and shape of the ship, but the angle that the ship is facing towards the enemy radar. For instance, an Eclipse would have a higher cross-section value when passing over a radar installation, as they'd see the entire bottom of the ship, than when its thin front profile was pointed at the radar installation while approaching. Coatings. Coatings can be applied to any ship to reduce the cross-section value. This has been proposed by CIG as being void armor. Void armor works as a cross-section reducer. Adding this to stealth ships will reduce their cross-section value further. This can be added to regular non-stealth ships as well. The disadvantage of void armor should be in its damage mitigation, that is, it wouldn't be as strong as other armors. Masking. Masking is the action of putting something between your ship and the searching radar to obscure your ship's cross-section return. This can be asteroids, a space station, another ship, terrain or valleys or mountains, etc. This is simple and a realistic approach to how cross-section value reduction would work, and allows any ship to reduce their cross-section value to the point that they are not trackable simply by the radar not being able to see them. Cross-section reduction measures and stealth ships should be countered by SEW&C ships such as the Hornet Tracker and Terrapin. Expert SSOs could adjust the radar focus to an area of space to increase the chance of detection of a ship. The interface the SSO uses to operate the onboard sensors could be similar in nature to the map used in Homeworld, with a ship and all the contacts would be displayed around the ship in 3D. To save on rendering costs, the contacts could be shown as simple symbols instead of their 3D models. During regular radar operation, 100% of the radar's power is used to cover 100% of the radar's area of detection. If the SSO wants to search a particular area of space, they could direct 50% of the radar's power to 10% of the total scanned area, increasing the likelihood of detection of a stealth ship in that area. This would have the disadvantage of only having 50% of the radar's scan power left to be utilised in the remaining 90% of the scanned area, reducing the detection range in that space by 50%, making the SEW&C more vulnerable to attack from other angles. This adds a risk versus reward mechanic. The SSO could also direct more power to the radar at the expense of all other systems, increasing the detection power while reducing the effectiveness of all other systems. If detection is successful, the SSO could direct the pilot or other ships towards the detected opponent via a tagging style system. The SSO must continue to update the target location at this increased range. Tagging would show the target location tag that would be visible to all friendly ships on their IFF list. To counter masking, the SEW&C ship could maneuver into a location that allows for direct line of sight, making the pilot's job to maintain a good search pattern and working with the SSO important team play. Multiple SEW&C ships could combine their detection power, increasing the ability to detect stealth and other ships. Electromagnetic. Electromagnetic emissions are produced by the ship's emitting components and systems such as radar, radio and active scanners. Pilots can control how much or how little the ship emits by setting these systems to active, passive or off. When the systems are in active mode, they are actively transmitting. This would be when the ship's radar is actively searching for targets, ship's radio is being used to transmit or receive messages or data, or scanners are actively pinging. By setting the radar to passive mode, it could only detect ships that were actively using their radar by way of their emissions. Whenever a ship is being tracked by radar, that ship must be alerted via a warning tone and an icon on their radar warning receiver. This will allow the pilot good situational awareness to make informed decisions. By not transmitting on their radio, the pilot essentially removes any way for the enemy to detect them in that way. This means, of course, that they cannot transmit data or text communication. In real life, this is referred to as emissions control, or MCON. This could be implemented as a push button that turns off all the transmitters on the ship. The counter to this is when a SEW&C ship detects a transmission of any type, that would be shown on their radar display. The SSO could then tag the transmission location for friendly fighters to investigate. Infrared. Infrared is generated by heat. Anything that generates heat can be detected by infrared sensors. This can be the ship's engines, weapons, power plant, or even the crew themselves. Ships can reduce the likelihood of being detected on IR sensors by ensuring that they keep their heat emissions as low as possible or masking them. This should include weapons being off or not being fired, and thrusters either off or not active. With weapons on but only in standby, they would generate only minimal heat. If they are actively firing, the heat value would rapidly rise. When a ship is not manoeuvring, the amount of heat being produced again is minimal. To ensure that heat levels are at a minimum, the ship could turn their thrusters off and just coast or mask their heat signature by hiding behind another larger object. Stealth ships could be able to reduce their heat signature even further by storing the heat inside them rather than radiating it into space to be detected. This could require the ship's cooler systems to be at max capacity, meaning that once the ship turns this system off to become combat ready, they would be lit up on IR while the ship's coolers radiate away the heat before being fully ready. To counter this, heat can be detected by both passive and active IR scanners. Passive scanners would be positioned around the ship to allow them to detect when a ship or other heat source is nearby. Passive IR detection would be at a lower range than radar, and contact resolution would increase or decrease depending on range. The further away the ship is, the less likely they would be detected, and if they are detected, would only show up as an unknown object. Once the ship gets closer, the system's resolution would be able to determine the more exact position and type of heat source that it is. When initially detected, the ship or object would be only shown as a blob on the radar and no more. As the ship either comes closer, is detected by other sensors like radar, then the ship's type, accurate position and other information could become clear. SEW&C ships would have better passive IR sensors to allow for better detection range. They would also have active IR scanning. This would be in a similar form to current day forward-looking infrared or FLIR systems. The SSO could control a remote turret-style FLIR system that would allow them to focus on and zoom to a specific location in space. If they discover a ship in that area they are looking, they could again tag them using the location marker as discussed before. If a target is being painted by FLIR, they would be alerted on their RWR or radar along with the location of the targeting threat. The interaction between stealth fighters and SEW&C ships could make for some really involving and interesting gameplay, where high-tech games of cat and mouse could be played out between hunters and prey. The addition of a sensor systems operator to the back seat of the Hornet tracker, along with the implementation of an intuitive UI, would make that role indispensable in a fight and make stealth ships an interesting challenge to fly. Good hunting, pilots.